So my thought was that today we could just kind of continue our discussion about our path to 90 and maybe take a look at some best practices that I'm not sure if we've tried yet. I did some research based off of I use the new Google Gemini deep research in the paid version that does a lot and Perplexity, and I found stuff for cursor. Actually, based off of a video that I saw last weekend of a developer who set up their cursor environment, and it was pretty cool. I could show you the video if you want.
Who's oh, the video, okay.
And then I have a document that I wrote there. But then yesterday there was a really interesting Reddit thread that kind of like lit on fire and got a lot of people contributing to how people, did what they're calling vibe coding, which I think is a very different thing. Like vibe coding is just like going with it and saying that whatever the AI does is good enough or it has to be torn down and regenerated. No, we're not doing vibe coding. We're doing something much more surgical and professional, right? So, but there might be some things that we might be able to learn from that, including maybe even some tool opportunities. So, I had Google go through again and like read every comment and try to like scrape together every little juicy bit. And I made it into a document. So those are the two documents in a video that I thought maybe you could take a look at some of it.
I absolutely want to see what you found. Deep research is something that I never bothered to actually create a paid account for or pay for. But if I can piggyback on your account, I would be very interested what it has to say. Um, the only thing I can add that occurred to me since last time we had this discussion where we one of our company meetings we had a discussion about how many of those tools do you need, what are the better ones. So I kind of started to think along the lines, first of all, what are the difference between those tools? They can be actually grouped into several different cluster of types or several different types. But the one that actually does make a difference, and that to answer your question, why do I prefer open hands? Are the ones that matter to me are the ones that have very good code analysis capability. Many of them all of them can generate something. Not many of them can actually analyze something that you have.
Yeah.
And many of those tools they don't necessarily have whatever they have for code analysis. It's some prompt engineering plus not very sophisticated tools to make sense of the code. They just look at the directory listings, or they do a full directory listing of the entire code base and try to make sense what exactly that is. And the LLMs, they're surprisingly good about doing that, making sense of some just desperate data, desperate data. I didn't pronounce it right. Where I remember I was testing a I was testing our old PromptOwl, like file attachment capability, and I just wanted to attach a file and see if it goes through. And the file I chose was a text file where I kept a log of my previous job search. It just happened to be on somewhere on the top of my desktop, and I was almost shocked. It looked at the open source looked. I mean the model, not open source. The larger language model looked at that file and just said, "This looks like somebody's log for a job search." And then it gave some more details that were kind of obvious if a human looks at that, but the fact that the model can look into that was a little shocking at the time. So that's what actually OpenHands does. It just does a last. It does grab very basic tools to fish out some strings from the code and it tries to make sense from with some data of this sort. So, but that's one. The cool thing about OpenHands too is that it's actually open source. So you can look into the code. You can talk to people to develop it. For those closed source, I don't have the same ability to talk to somebody and I don't know what exactly it uses. It definitely has a lot. It's a lot less capable in terms of actually analyzing code for sure. So,
Well, I saw some interesting patterns, and this could be the one with the guy that was showing. I think he was demonstrating cursor actually.
hmm
But he articulated some design patterns like, let me, he said that basically you can go and put in some coding preferences. And you can start off with saying, always prefer simple solutions, avoid duplication of code when possible. So it actually tells it to go and check as part of, its prompt. He says, write code that takes into account the different environments, dev, test, and prod. You're careful to only make changes that are requests or you're confident are well understood and related to the change being requested. I think that's just trying to make it a little bit more timid about changing things, for no reason. Trying to like lower the volatility there a little bit. And it says, when fixing an issue or a bug, do not introduce a new pattern or technology without first exhausting all options for the existing implementation. And if you finally do this, make sure you remove the old implementation afterwards so we don't have duplicate logic. So that could be kind of interesting.
I can't comment on that. I mean,
There's a couple more. One
I
the
wouldn't guess. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
so the a couple more. Keep the code base very clean and organized. Avoid writing scripts and files if possible, especially if the script is likely only to be run once. Avoid having files over 200 to 300 lines of code. Refactor at this point, and that's one of the things that I think is maybe beneficial is to try to keep all of the files extremely small. And that makes it a lot more economical to revise these things and also like keeps them from creating crazy amounts of code. It might actually make it a faster way to generate them. And then he also talked a lot about having like mocking data is it's only needed for tests, never mock data for dev or prod because it tended to generate a lot of like weird data for the application that sort of changed how the overall behavior because it fit whatever data it imagined versus what data it was asked to go handle. Um, and then never overwrite any of my ENV files without first asking and confirming. So what are your reactions to those?
The one that I would really find useful is about the commenting. All the others, I don't have a slightest idea. So maybe they're useful, maybe not so much. I wonder what kind of language it's actually based on. And I bet different languages have different propensity of being um uh, of okay of let's say playing nice with LLMs. Depending on the language, it's possible. That then depends on how much code there is in GitHub for that language. The more popular ones, I guess I would suppose the LLMs have better time with. I think I almost expect Python work better than JavaScript. Not sure about Java or C++. And then the question is a lot of talk of here lately about the reasoning models. I honestly am not sure what exactly that means. But if there are models that are specifically good on making bullet points of steps and then following those steps which is
Yeah.
basics of agentic anyways, they might work out better. So my honestly, documentation is the big one here.
Yeah.
And then documentation doesn't only help, that's not only helping people to actually maintain the code. It technically supposed to help the model, another model to have easier time editing that code in the future.
Yeah. Well, commenting code always makes a big difference.
I've actually talked to one of our developers recently
Oh, yeah?
who uses started to use Cursor, and interesting. He said he specifically likes Cursor, and when I said it's not necessarily very good at finding the code if you want to change something, like the model-based search capability is not the best I've seen. He goes, "I like it. He understands the code already. He likes to have a lot more control. So something like Cursor was basically a chatbot on the side of the UI of the graphical development environment is for him it's better than just not of having something that's smarter but doesn't give you as much control, does a lot of stuff for you. I could see what he's coming from. I probably in the places where I know code very well, I would see it too, and where I would know code very well, I would find it useful if the model can help me make sense of
So
the
let me see
code.
if I can play that back. So what you're saying is that he finds Cursor acceptable because he knows the code base so intimately well. He can go and say, okay, let's go work on these couple files versus having to go say fix this in the whole code base.
Mhm.
And that's why it works really well for him. Interesting.
Right, but also it's also the control. Control is though. Don't discount the control. If people are used to actually truly owning the code, they find it. They don't necessarily need the model that badly.
Yeah.
Model, like people are used to Googling, so if model can do it a little bit better, okay. But on the other hand, if model can go through the entire internet of suggestion per question and then generate the wrong response, they would find it very useful. And it's also a matter of trust. Do I trust the model to actually be reasonable in summarizing the answers of my question, or would I not?
Hmm. So, do you think for like something like that, it's gonna get make it difficult for him to ever want to get to 90%, you know? Like, will he always prefer to have that much control, or is there what would make him want to lose more control?
First of all, trust. I'm pretty sure trusting that what you get is, roughly speaking, just as good and very similar in style to what you would have written anyways, it would make him more accepting of the code generation. But in a way, I almost see like automatic code generation is something that the managers will embrace a lot better than the developers themselves, because managers never write their code. So for them, asking a model or asking a human in a way is similar, except for models are I mean, they're not humans. They don't have all the social needs that come with that. For developers, it does seem to be a bit of a struggle. Like developers need to justify, and then developers like developing. Don't discount that. They actually like the process. They might hate it when they're very crunched for a deadline. Yes, then that it would work for them to try to use more of a model to generate code. But if they actually are giving their choice and their comfort to develop, very often they would choose to develop on their own manually because that's fun. It's like solving puzzles all day.
I mean,
Like, why would I want to give up a job that I like, right?
well, if you can solve bigger problems at, faster and at scale.
Again, that's a managerial problem. It's a managerial point of view. It's not a developer point of view.
Okay.
Like I actually used I actually tried to use the models to generate me code a few times lately when I was time crunch and I really needed to finish stuff. But think of that. The problem is when a developer is time crunched, they might find they might not trust the model. They might not have enough experience to actually ask the model to do it. What you do is a lot more predictable from your point of view, right? But if they have all the time in the world, if they're in the mode where they're not time crunch, they just want to do it at their own pace, then it's questionable what exactly will motivate them to switch.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I mean, your point about the trust is really kind of the holy grail, right? Like if they don't trust, like,
It definitely plays a role. Here's an example. Some people say they can use models to generate SQL queries. I personally love SQL, and I think it's one of the best languages ever developed. And I would never want to use a model to generate it. I think it's so concise and so precise and so good that using tools to even make it even better is worthless. But that's because I know SQL very well. And I might try to use it. I might be tempted to use it in some more complex cases where it takes me some effort to come up with a solution myself. But that's exactly the case where I would not be 100% sure if I could trust what I get.
yeah, that
The
comes with
problem,
risk, right? Like if I
yeah,
don't know
the
what it
problem with
is.
models is you never know what you get. And if there is a way to easily test it, okay. If there is none, then you have to figure out how to validate the result, right? It's a bit like models are a bit like magic. They actually produce something, but you don't know what it is. If it works, great, but you don't know how far it goes for it works. How many
I mean, is
bugs
there
are
a way
produced?
when you're doing this to say like keep going until you get it right and to put the trust into it? Like
Well,
practices actually
it's
do test-driven development, correct?
it sounds like what was your question about test-driven development?
I mean, wouldn't it make sense to go write these prompts like test-driven development? Like you go say,
Um,
sure it passes this test before you come
I
back.
say that sounds very logical in theory. I was a bit, I found it a bit problematic to do in practice. Like I do find it a bit problematic to actually generate the tests even with them all the meaningful tests that actually do what you want to do.
Really?
Like the best thing the models are good for if you have a lot of repetitive code, like a ton of repetitive code and you kind of know what needs to be done, but it's not something you can really put into subroutines or like shorten, make more precise, concise in any meaningful way. You can ask a model to sort of generate everything according to the rules, right? But if you have to write very ask the model to write very various code, I can't say I was super successful in that. Simple things are a lot easier to generate than complex things, and simple things are a lot less needed to be. There's a lot less need to generate those things. Models are good. What people are good at, anyways, when it comes to code generation. It's really the
So,
complex stuff
so
that
you're
some
saying
that
one of the big things that the problems is even automating the tests for the test-driven development. Like, how do
um
you get there? How do you solve that issue would probably help in the code generation below, right?
right. Well, maybe that's why UI is so much better, easier to generate. There is an easy way to see what you get. There is very easy to test.
Yeah.
Right. As far as models, okay, I always I'm always ready to accept, but maybe I didn't do enough. Maybe I should be more disciplined about test-driven development. But I also have seen how you try to generate tests only to get some garbage.
Yeah.
And okay, if you can generate, it's not something I find necessarily um, easy and straightforward. Where it's easy and straightforward, we already use it. When it's not easy, not straightforward, we are still searching. We're still looking for our way.
Yeah. One of the things that they were talking about in the Reddit conversation this week was talking about how uh, it is extremely prone to security vulnerabilities to have code generation, and it is critical to have, as part of your tools, to have a separate security tool. It
Interesting.
could be AI powered, but it needs to be, like you need to have a checks and balances system.
I wouldn't think about that. I honestly would expect it to be better than that, but and maybe it will be in the future, but never thought about it this way. But yeah, okay, I could see it.
I mean, they're talking about like code injection and a lot of sort of dangerous things. I actually looked up because I was like, well, what do you mean that we need to have some automated security tools? And they've got static. Asked Gemini to go in and let me know, and I can't even count how many this is, but maybe like 50 static ones, and then 20 dynamic ones. I could share my screen if you want to see.
Go ahead. Can you send me the pages you reviewed? I'm curious. I'm
I
hooked. I
did. I
want to.
sent them to you this morning, I
Oh,
thought.
you did. Okay, I haven't. So I'll double check.
Yeah, so these
When
are,
automated security, static security testing. Okay. Where's the potential vulnerability? See, I think it's kind of a next step and something we should might explore that where you try to integrate LLMs with sort of tools that already exist. A lot of tools exist out there for code analysis,
yeah.
and some of them, yeah, look at the security vulnerability. Some just do like something like some of those tools do suggest code improvements or style improvement, like styling code tests. Some of them some of them actually can convert your source code into the intermediate form, something like what a compiler does, and leave it in that intermediate form. And maybe that would be better served by a large language model.
Hmm. I mean, I recognize a few things like Dynatrace, I recognize.
Yeah, the ones that are more popular are probably going to be on the top, but I'm not super. See, okay,
I think this is done. Well, no, it's not alphabetical.
um, GitLab, yeah, Code QL, I think, SonarQube definitely.
Anyways,
So
pretty
yeah, the
insane.
idea is like you can write you when we come to AGI, it will look at the code and make it so perfect that no human would ever be able to do anything nearly as comprehensively good on all levels, right? But we are not there yet.
Yeah, this is the summary. I had it summarized up here. Um, Dependency dramas. Oh yeah, one of the other things that everybody, like there was a lot of commenters that said that letting AI do all of your work leads to messy, hard to maintain code, and basically you end up with technical debt. Which is true. I mean,
Yeah.
we experience that too, right? Like it's kind of crazy how much it always wants to create new stuff versus like, totally refactor everything.
Yeah, and that's what many people say is the best use if you need a quick throwaway script to do some minor thing. Yeah, the generated code is great for that.
Yeah.
But if you want to use it to maintain and improve and add onto a large project. It's not yet, the case could not yet be very well made about LLM having being like besting the humans and being able to um, seriously improve the productivity or replace humans.
Well, I mean,
But
I
that's where it would be
think,
more valuable.
I mean, I think the theme is that we're kind of hitting on that it's like important to review and learn and make it a little bit more iterative, right? To figure
Possibly,
out
yes.
how to do that.
Yeah, well, remember when we talked and I showed you how the uh, tool based on the models can actually generate documentation.
Yeah.
I mean, that is something it can do. So you already have a tool that does something very useful. Okay, so let's like perhaps we should do it one step at a time. Documenting, well, great. Um,
I think it would be cool if you could have like some isolated checks as it, like put it through like kind of a workflow
mhm.
when it goes and says, okay, well, first thing you want to do is write the test. Then, we've got to accept the test. Okay, now like what's the request for the prompt that goes in, and then you have like different review cycles in there, which could be like describe what this is like independently and see if it matches what the instructions were and have something describe it, have a separate agent describe it.
Yeah, or assimilate the actual native tools for the programming, run it and see what it does.
Yeah.
Make a real test. Yeah, so
Another thing they said is don't let AI actually see your data.
that's an interesting point, and data security in the world of AI, it's a great question. Like when we send your request, when we set proprietary data via a public data model, let's say a rag stored data goes to a public data model. What is the likelihood that they're actually storing it somewhere? And it could leak or it could be used maliciously.
Yeah. But I mean, particularly in cases like us where we're developing against a code base and we have, you know, customer data in there. Is there, I mean, we don't have any customer data in our development environment, which is basically where we're using AI, right? So it kind of,
Well,
we
in this
it
case we
has
do,
some
but
segregation.
code itself is a proprietary data for the most part. It's proprietary for us, but it's proprietary for a lot of other organizations. It's their competitive advantage.
Oh, so you're saying like the data that we should be like we shouldn't use AI on sensitive patterns.
It's in the modern world. It's a risk. It's a trade-off. You can use your AI. You might actually improve your productivity, not as a development team, but just of any sort, right? You can do AI smart automated agents that actually help you with business functions, right? But it all goes through a cloud, through a provider that for small time clients does not guarantee the data security
Hmm.
or data privacy. They leave a full right to just leave that data for their own use, to store it, to record it.
Yeah. Probably to inform it over time, right? Like that's how it's
Right. I
better.
mean, large company usually strike contracts with those providers to keep it proprietary, and smaller time customers will probably get a chance for that as well in some time in the future, but not at the moment.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes sense if you've got proprietary code to be then developing against a proprietary database. I bet you that might also help us to improve our results and stop the hallucinations because it'll get really, really smart on our code base, right?
Hopefully. I'm not yeah, I don't have a definite answer for that. And in the modern day and age, if I don't have a definite answer, I don't have I definitely wouldn't have an indefinite answer.
Fair
It's
enough.
always maybe. It's never yes or no. It's always maybe.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Oh, saying that the dev's role is changing. It's like now you're going to be more like judge and jury versus hands-on building.
Maybe.
I mean, it kind of makes sense as an evolution, right? Like it would be the humans that would be architecting the solutions and saying how the patterns that you want to use in order to solve it and the tools that you want to decide to use. And then, have AI do quite a bit of the lifting. And then, you basically got every developer's got its own junior developer, right?
Maybe that's what it's going to be, but maybe the opposite will happen. The AI is going to do the architecting, and the humans are going to do some small, repetitive, dirty work that AI will never learn to do.
Like what?
There is this old joke. There is this not old. It's actually a new joke that says we thought that that automation is going to do the dirty dishes while we concentrate on, on important fun stuff. And turns out lately that AI does important fun stuff while we do the dirty dishes.
Oh, okay. Is this
It's
another
like
Russian joke?
no, it's not a Russian joke. It's AI joke.
Okay.
But it's how it is. It's like, will AI actually replace what the junior developers, the least productive developers, or will it actually replace the opposite, the most productive developers, or whatever people like do? Like it's like art generates like image generation. We used to have artists, then we had photographers, and now we have AI. If you want a painting, you no longer need to actually use paint and canvas, and you not even any longer need to use
Use pixels.
a camera. Yeah, you just go to a prompt and say, generate me something that looks like this, and where it's like a second later you have an image. You no longer need stock photography like people used to do.
Yeah. Well, it does do some pretty interesting thing, but I still think that there's some fun in it. Like you said, even for, I'm a photographer
I
on the side, and
I hope for
I
it.
always love to take pictures, right? Because there's that thrill of seeing exactly how you got the light right in that moment or whatever. Um, of real life and real memories. And I don't think that's ever gonna be replaced. But I do think that it's gonna sort of like, change how it's done. For instance, these are my like regular progressive glasses. That's not what I use for working on a computer because it's like far away and then I have to like kind of look like this to look down on it. But these are smart glasses. Like I just
Oh,
took a picture of us.
oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like I think that, and I've got Meta AI in here. Like I can ask Meta anything at any time and
Mm.
she'll answer
Is
me.
that one of those Google glasses? I remember they were popular for a short period sometime like 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's the Meta Ray-Ban ones. Yeah, they're really good. I love them, actually. They're great for wearing around. They're not great for staring at the computer. Then I use ones that have like blue blocking and all that kind of stuff in it. But yeah, kind of fun. Well, Cool. I mean, I do have this thing about going into Cursor, but I feel like Cursor is something that you're not using. We have another developer that uses it, right? So maybe we can figure out going through this with him because it's a lot more specific to what do you think the next things that we could do to go expand our efforts here? Or are we just like kind of waiting? I appreciate
Um,
it. Like, why don't you read through what I have and see if there's anything extra that we could talk about? But maybe we can make
okay.
more trials and see if we can learn anything from these and report back.
Yeah, so I try to try. I've actually tried to like think of which tools I should also try compared to what we already have, and that's where my idea came from. That the tool that really mattered to me is the one that can analyze code rather than the one that just write it. So I made a short list. So Cursor is there, OpenHands is there, Windsurf is there. I tried that tool that I really wanted to try for a few weeks called SW Agent, and it seems like it's actually a project that's in a not very turn out to be a project that's not very advanced stage of completion.
Hmm.
So it turned out to be a bit of a disappointment. So
But do
um,
you have that? You said you had a list of 22. Do you have that actual
yes,
written down
yes,
that you could share with me? Because maybe I can publish that and maybe we can solicit some comments.
coder. So either Lovable, Bolt, Tempo, V0 Replit. Those I think are mostly other than either. Those was it four or five? Five are very similar. They're like they don't analyze code at the moment. They're very good for UI generation. Data button, I'm AI developer for non-techie, so it's sort of like no code. WebSim, I'm not sure. I don't have any details. I just have a link. Sidebrew, same thing. Client, the way I understand is something similar to um, Cursor.
I heard
Oh,
somebody tried Klein on our team, right?
I've heard that name. I
Yeah.
remember there was a project was basically open source Cursor. I think client that is. I need to double check if
Somebody
it's
used it and wasn't like overwhelmed.
yeah. Unlock Cursor for designers, so it's not exactly even a programming tools. Windsurf, also known as Codium, at least
I've
known
heard
as
a lot of windsurf. Like a lot of people talk about cursor and windsurf first. Um,
yeah, I
have you
gotta
used
try it,
it?
but I never say
Yeah.
what?
Have you used windsurf?
No, I think it's on my list to actually try it. But see, when you have that many, it's very often you don't have much time to spend. You open it up, you do it for 5 minutes and see what you get. If you immediately see a result, great. If you don't, then you just give up and move on.
Hmm.
Oops. Oh, okay. I went into Midsurf. It's also installed. It has to be installed, like Cursor. So that's one of the reasons. So Anthropic Claude Code. I tried to like it's. I tried it. I wasn't very successful to actually getting it running, but I'll try it again. I will really spend like and the same as Gemini Code Assist. Devin. Now that's was the very first tool I've heard about a year ago, and it's one of the proprietary tools. And funny enough, rarely hear about that now, and I know I'm not sure if you can even get it.
People keep
But
saying
open,
out on people keep asking what happened to Devin? What happened to Devin? I'm wondering too if it maybe doesn't exist anymore.
I don't know, I don't know. No, well, there is a website, so there is something about there, but it's not like super available.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Let's see what else. Open Hands used to be Open Devon, so it was an attempt to make an open source, and I use it, but at least it's a lot simpler to get your hands on.
Yeah.
Devika was another clone of, or at least attempt to redo the Devon, but Open Hands I think is better, and more advanced, farther along the line. SW agents tried it today, but couldn't really get it to a useful work. So maybe it's not in the shape that I was thinking it is. It's open source. SWE Bench and SWE Gyms. Those are actually two tools to benchmark the coding agents.
Oh, like what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like to see what how productive we are, or to see
I don't
how
exactly know how
hallucinatory
I
they
don't
are?
exactly know how they work, but the people I mean I'm signed up for Open Hands Slack channel. The people who develop Open Hands constantly discuss the benchmarks, but I'm not sure how exactly the benchmark works. Cursor, okay, we know what Cursor. Kodi, I think Kodi is similar to like Cursor and Codium. Download for free. I might try it, but I think it's along the lines already had. Not is something I just recently added. Fix stuff bugs, but again, how do you fix stuff bugs? Okay, you can import folder. It's one of those things where I try to find for like 10 seconds and I couldn't get like, do you actually attach your code base?
That's strange.
Maybe. So, and the last one I've added to my list actually the other day is code body. I already have, so it could be a JetBrains plugin. So I mean I already by the time I added it like earlier this week, I already had a long list. So
Gotcha.
uh, adding yet another one that nobody heard of, or not that many people heard of. I don't know. I just don't have necessarily have time. I
Yeah,
already
I mean,
have a few on my list to check.
I would go for the more reputable ones. Check out
But yeah,
Whisper before maybe going into some of these guys.
it's like when you say reputable, just because something is buzzed, it doesn't mean it's good. Something is
Of course.
less known, it doesn't mean it's bad. Open Hands is not necessarily um, a very well known tool. Like a lot more people know about Cursor or Windsurf, but I think Open Hands is very advanced. I like if you are sort of trying talking to your code literally, it's better than Cursor in my opinion. It has better search capability,
Hmm.
and yet not many people heard of it. I heard of it only because a year and a half ago, no, a year ago, I started Googling. I've heard about Devin. I started Googling, and I found this Open Devin clone that was the best, next, like the closest thing I could put my hands on. So that's how I got involved. And I still think it's the best one so far I've tried.
Maybe it would be interesting just like to really highlight to our folks, like let's do, I don't know what it would be like. Go into like, create a branch where we've got blug in there and everybody pick one. Like, I don't know if you pick windsurf or you pick open hands, and then we get another one to pick another dev to pick windsurf and another one to do cursor, and just record what it takes to fix it in your own branches, like or your own local hosts, and maybe we can compare. We can do kind of our own bake off.
We can try. I'm not super optimistic that will actually work the same way. First of all, we don't have that many developers.
We've got at least
Our
three.
our sample size is small. Second, different people have different preferences. They also have different level of code-based breadths of code-based understanding. So, is that the developer or is that the tool that is the essential
Are
ingredient?
you suggesting that it would be more appropriate if like you tried it on all three versus having three different developers try three different tools?
I think three different developers who try a number of different tools and tell which person has the preference on what. Yeah, that would be better. Except for they won't have time. Just because it's like me looking at tool A is not the same as somebody else looking at tool B. I If we switch, we might have very different result.
Right.
I
Hmm.
mean, in the past, I actually tried GitHub Copilot, and I've tried the JetBrains' own AI offering. It was a while back, though. They might have improved since then. And the same thing, they at the time they weren't necessarily very good. They were like a chat window, except for not in the browser, but right in your development environment. But they were not very good at analyzing your code at the time, and they were not very good at
I might
generating
be
code.
different now, but we're of course not using a Microsoft.
Right, and that's the second problem. Like those tools, they evolve just as quickly as models evolve, so or the whole landscape evolves, so you have to come back to that testing all the time.
Yeah. I mean, Microsoft's done its duty on touting. I just did a post yesterday
On what?
on our Substack about how about the ROI, and like I dug into Microsoft. They get like 140 examples of case
Oh,
studies.
code
I
body.
mean, massive, massive ROI. People are definitely organizations are definitely touting it, but that's more like you get network effect benefits if you're all Microsoft, right? Like if you're an Azure implementation, then that's probably something that would be rewarding, but we're not. So some pretty big things if you go up, like they're
Yeah.
saying, that Microsoft helped IDC do something, and they figured out that for every dollar you spend, you get $3.70 back out. But some of these numbers are pretty big
Mm,
for large corporations.
interesting. Interesting. No, there definitely are some functions that are very easily automatable by the technology.
Yeah.
All right, let's stop at this.
Yes, I was just gonna say the same. Let
But
uh, maybe we'll talk again the next week, making it a pattern.
yeah, so okay, so becoming a weekly podcast. I gotta get prepared then.
We gotta start thinking of content. All right. Thanks,
All
Igor.
right, thank you.